Hey
Hello.
everyone, I'm with the recently paroled Katie Fag. She is free. She is free. It's Katie. She is free from MSNBC. She's free from contract. She can say anything she wants
Ye-
to say because now she hosts and edits the Law and Disorder Substack. You have to go subscribe to pay. Katie Fang, as you know,
Yes.
was one of the many POC stars of MSNBC, but MSNBC kind of has lost its mind recently. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about representation of us. POC in media. But before we do, we're going to talk about all the legal shenanigans of the Trump administration. And specifically, what I want to ask Katie about are three cases, and then also what happened with MSNBC. Number one, as
Sure.
you all know, the Trump administration right now, as they promised they would, is openly trying to end birthright citizenship. Isn't that in the Constitution? It is. But this is a white supremacist regime, and this is what Stephen Miller and white supremacists have been trying to do for a long time because they want more white babies. So those are oral arguments happening right now. I want to talk to Katie about that. Number one. Number two, I do want to talk to her about the case in Wisconsin where a judge was indicted, right, for simply doing her job, and the Trump administration is saying that she aided and abetted, the undocumented immigrant, and she intervened in law with law against law enforcement trying to capture him. That's number two. And then the third thing I want to ask her about is, this thing called habeas corpus, suspending the rights. To habeas corpus, why that's such a big deal, why everyone should care about it, not just immigrants, but everyone. So, first off, Katie, I give you today in the year 2025, can you please explain to people what the Trump administration and its lawyers are arguing in front of the Supreme Court in the year 2025 in the United States of America?
So I'm glad we're talking about this because, and the reason why I keep looking at my computer is I'm getting real-time updates on the oral arguments that are happening as you and I are hanging out with your
Yeah.
amazing viewers right now. So I want to kind of address what's happening because Waj, it's important always for people to understand there's a procedure and there's a substance to what's happening right now. So there are three consolidated emergency appeals that were taken by the Trump administration because in three different states, three federal district court judges issued nationwide injunctions, meaning a block against across the country against enforcement of Trump's executive order that was going to do away with birthright citizenship, which you accurately stated is a guarantee within the United States Constitution. It's within an amendment, the 14th Amendment. Now, birthright citizenship has been challenged in court previously. Previous decisions have upheld birthright citizenship. There's also congressional actions that were taken in 1940 that upheld the concept that if you are born on United States soil, that you are a citizen of the United States, regardless of the citizenship status of your parents. Now, it's also important because history matters. This birthright citizenship concept came at the abolition of slavery. It was this idea
Ah,
of finding
ah,
equality for people, for children specifically that were born on United States soil, again, regardless of the citizenship status of the parents. The Trump administration, to your point, doesn't have a problem giving refugee status to white South Afrikaners to be able to come to the United States to flee their version of persecution, which is a lie. So they
yep,
don't have a problem with the white people coming, but they certainly have a problem with any of the brown, black, and other people wanting to stay in the United States because their children are United States citizens. And let's be very clear here. The practical implications being that depending upon what happens today, there's not going to be a ruling from the Supreme Court on the exact issue of whether or not that constitutional amendment is going to be overturned. That's not what's happening today. Historically, district court judges have the ability to issue nationwide injunctions, even if you, for example, are not a plaintiff in that courtroom, meaning you don't have to have standing if this district court judge issues a nationwide injunction blocking or enjoining action from happening. Now, the hypocrisy, which is again on brand for the GOP, is when judges like Matt Kazmarek in Texas issue nationwide injunctions blocking the use of mifepristone or the issuance of mifepristone, the
yep,
Republicans have no freaking problem whatsoever with a nationwide injunction.
yep,
But when district court judges and federal courts say, what you're doing is unconstitutional and illegal, suddenly they want to run with their tails tucked between their legs to the Supreme Court to beg the Supreme Court to hear something out of turn. That's another important point, Waj. There is a
yes.
process by which these cases get to the Supreme Court. In this instance, they're screaming, it's an emergency. And what's
Emergency
interesting
appeals.
Exactly. And so they consolidated three of these appeals. But what's fascinating is normally you don't have oral arguments on emergency appeals. It's part of that shadow docket that we've heard and we've read about, decisions that are rendered, taken out of turn versus the normal due course of a case. You've only had four instances of oral arguments. And I want to say since 19, I wrote this down. It was so interesting. Since 1971, and this is only the fourth time. And what's happened today is this guy named D. John Sauer, he's the Solicitor General for the United States. If his name sounds familiar, he's the lawyer who got up in front of a federal appeals court, a federal court, and the Supreme Court and said that SEAL Team 6 could be dispatched to assassinate a political enemy, and that would be completely immune conduct by a president. He
And that
has
was in
now
the
made,
summer. That was in the summer. And can you just remind Katie that once he made that argument, everyone, including you and me, who are pretty cynical about the Supreme Court, said surely this Supreme Court will put some limits on Donald Trump. And can you just remind people to connect the dots what the Supreme Court, after hearing that argument, what they ruled in the summer?
they said that within the ambit or within kind of the sphere of duties of the president of the United States, if it falls within his role and responsibility as the president, and even if it reaches within the outer perimeter of his actions as the president, he has immunity from criminal prosecution.
Just so people know.
So I mean, so folks, the reason why, I talk about the enablers all the time, the lawyers that represent Trump that go to court either in the government public sector or the private sector, and then they get rewarded like Todd Blanche, Emil Bovey, et cetera. But Sauer just argued that nationwide injunctions like this are evil. And he said, quote, and I wanted to write this down because it's just so fucking hypocritical. He said nationwide injunctions are an unprecedented nuclear weapon on executive power. But again, when it helps them, they don't have a problem with it. But when it hurts them, they have a problem with it. And Justice Sotomayor, thank God for her, said Trump's executive order violates at least four precedents in the Supreme Court. But what is the practical implication, Waj? And then I'll shut up.
No, don't shut
If
up. I want to press play on you, and you're just cooking. Cook.
So, if the Supreme Court today agrees with the Trump administration that nationwide injunctions should not be allowed to be issued, then
Mm.
the practical implication is each individual plaintiff, each individually impacted immigrant, each individually impacted human is going to have to sue in an individual capacity. Can you imagine the number of lawsuits that are being brought? And remember, this is going to be impacting minors. So it's suits brought on behalf of children, right? And if the Trump administration gets its way, it basically indirectly gets a ruling on birthright citizenship, doesn't it? Because
Yeah.
if SCOTUS says, yeah, you know what, nationwide injunctions suck and we're not going to allow that to happen in this instance, then they're pretty much saying birthright citizenship should be challenged on its constitutionality. Now, if they smartly say we might carve some limits on nationwide injunctions, but we allow them to proceed, then you'll still have the birthright citizenship amendment constitutionality of it. It'll remain intact while the cases are pending appeal. It's a little complicated, and I want to make sure everybody understands there will be a practical ruling today that may have an impact on birthright citizenship, but the issue of whether or not it's constitutional will not be answered by the Supreme Court today.
Yeah, it's
And that's what's
gonna
happening.
basically they're gonna tip their hat and see whether or not they're gonna allow Donald Trump to get, if you will, closer to his goals, right? And
Yeah.
can you please tell us about because Justice Kagan seems to be losing her mind, which is kind of amazing. I don't know if you've been following her quotes. Why is Justice Kagan like you're seeing her being much more performative with her anger than she ever has been?
Yeah, so she and the other quote unquote liberal side of the bench, they're particularly and understandably outraged because not only, as I said, Justice Sotomayor is noting that the executive order itself violates precedent, but even Justice Kagan is saying, time out. How can you, Trump administration, guarantee some type of expedited way to have these issues heard? Because otherwise, like we just talked about, you're going to have all of these cases that are just going to be kind of patchwork quilted dealing with all over the United States. It's not efficient. And in the meantime, you know what's going to happen? Exactly what the administration wants: the ability to round up people, kidnap them off of US soil, and ship them off to somewhere else. And then they say, a la Kilmar Abrego Garcia style, we don't have jurisdiction. They belong to other people now. We can't get them back. So, again, I think what we're seeing is a true crisis of conscience of
Mhm.
the Supreme Court.
Yep.
And, I look at somebody like Amy Coney Barrett, who's also asking the Trump administration, how do
Saw
we
that.
how do we do this? You got to be honest with us about how you think this is going to play out procedurally. But I also look at her and Waj, she got a lot of kids.
Yep.
She's got a lot of kids. So wouldn't it make you stop as a parent and ask yourself, if my kid was born in the United States, but I wasn't, and there was a question, an open question about my own citizenship, would I want to either not have my kid have citizenship or be separated from my child? I mean, you're not supposed to bring your personal biases into your judicial decisions, but let's just dispense with the bullshit. That's what we're getting from Clarence Thomas, Brett Kavanaugh, and Alito and others, right? We get their personal biases. And so I think we should stop pretending like they're not bringing their prejudices to the bench when they're making these decisions.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate that fantastic breakdown. This is why Katie Fang had her own show and now has her own Substack. I want to step back for a second because there's a theme throughout the cases that you mentioned. I think it's very important for people to use the R word, racism. I think it's very important for people to use the W word, white supremacist. I think it's very important for people to see, look at the current thread of all these cases, right? You mentioned Kilmar Garcia. You mentioned she's one of 238 people, brown immigrants, without due process, without any criminal charges, that were kidnapped in the United States of America and sent to die in a foreign
Yeah,
gulag, right? This Supreme Court said, hey, you got to bring back Kilmar
bring them
Garcia.
back.
And like what you just said, this Trump administration says, sorry, we don't have jurisdiction. Oh, he's in El Salvador. What can we do? And they also, folks, when it came to the district judge, while that plane was in the sky, the district judge, whose name I'm forgetting right now, said, turn that
Boasberg. James
Boasberg, who's
Boasberg.
been on it. Yeah, James Boasberg, who's been on it in DC, said, bring that plane back. They said, oh, the plane is over international waters, right? And what you're also seeing right now is Kristi Noem, folks, yesterday, Kristi Noem, DHS secretary, took time from not cosplaying and shooting dogs, echoed the words of Stephen Miller, who I call Pee Wee German or Budget Goebbels, and saying, habeas corpus, yeah, I think it's okay to suspend habeas corpus, right? Can you please explain to folks why, and you might disagree with me on this, Katie, the through line here is a white supremacist agenda to make America white again. We are importing white South Afrikaners, mislabeling them as refugees. There's no white genocide, right? It's a white supremacist conspiracy that was echoed by the right wing Elon Musk and now Donald
Elon
Trump, right?
Musk.
Yeah, it's bullshit. South Africa is not confiscating the land of white farmers. They're not the victims, right? It's a complete lie. So they literally welcomed white, non-refugee South African immigrants, and they are literally deporting, kidnapping
The
and
brown
deporting
people.
brown people.
Yeah.
So, like,
So
what did I get wrong here?
you didn't, I'm sorry to disappoint you if you expected me to disagree, but I'm not. I wrote a Substack piece, and by the way, footnote: the reason why I love being on Substack is it's almost like a journaling moment for me. If I get particularly inspired, I can write something, I can get on and do a video. I call them Fang files, or I can do interviews and speak to people like you. But I did a Substack last week because when that executive order from Donald Trump came out in January, February, that called for the ability to have expedited admission and resettlement
Mm,
of refugees from South Africa, I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me.
yeah,
And then when I saw the news that they were going to be welcoming 49 white South Afrikaners to the United States, and get this, as I wrote, they roll out the red carpet. They brought federal and state officials to greet these people at Dulles International Airport. When was the last time a brown refugee coming across the border ever had a federal and state official greet them with open arms and tell them, we are here to facilitate your resettlement? And by the way, it only took them 3 months, Waj. It normally takes
that's right.
years for people to get their refugee their refugee status to be approved. So the racism, you missed a W. You missed white Christian nationalism as
Yes,
well.
Yes,
Okay.
always.
So it's not just I don't like your color, it's also I don't like your religion. And I want to be able to use these concepts because that's all they are. You can learn about these ideas or concepts. It's the actual implementation or the execution upon these concepts that are the real danger. You want to talk about it? The First Amendment gives you the right to talk about it. You want to believe in it? Makes you a shitty human being, but the First Amendment allows you to do it. But when you actually start making it official policy, and when you start doing the kidnapping, the deportations, the refugee hypocrisy, and now when you try to basically eliminate the ability for children of immigrants to have citizenship in the United States, now it poses the real danger. So you talk about habeas corpus. Habeas corpus is just another word for due process. It's the
There you go.
idea of being able to challenge. And I love that people seem to, depending upon what side of the war you are in this watch, habeas corpus, due process, all these concepts, they only apply to a certain specific group of people, which is not the truth.
Nope.
Habeas corpus due process belongs to everyone, regardless of your citizenship status. Why? Because that's what the Constitution said. So again, the hypocrisy
Fifth
happens.
Amendment.
You can only use the Constitution when it fits your purpose. When it hurts your purpose, then you want to get rid of the United States Constitution. I have this idea that if you don't, because I love to kind of take the arguments that they like to spin in our face and turn it on their head. You don't want to live in the United States with a constitution? Go live somebody else. Go live somewhere else then. Go live somewhere else. Because we're in the United States with a constitution. You don't like it? Make your own land, make your own rules, make your own laws. Why do I have to leave? I shouldn't have to leave. You are clearly the one who is unhappy living in the United States. So it's not a radical concept. In my opinion, I want to break bread and be in a community with like minded folks like you and others that are tuning in right now. Stephen Miller, take your family, go somewhere else. Christy Noam, don't take the dogs. Leave the dogs for me
Yeah,
because I
leave the
like them
dogs.
to be
Leave the
safe.
dogs
Leave
for
the
Katie.
dogs with us, but go somewhere else if you don't want to be here. Don't tell me to leave. And don't tell me to go back to China, even though I'm Korean. It's kind of wild to me that the Constitution is a dirty word. It's a dirty word when it doesn't help their cause.
Yeah, so Katie's going to go back to where she came from, which is Florida, and I'm going to go back to the Bay Area. And Chrissy Nome is going to go back to killing dogs, it seems. Please, Christy, save the dogs. Folks, the hoods are off, right? The hoods are off because as this is happening in the year 2025, the Trump administration, again, I just want people to sit with it for a second, is arguing against the Constitution. It's arguing
Yep.
against the 14th Amendment. It's saying, listen, all these brown and Asian babies that are born here and automatically we give them citizenship, that is weakening the white population. That is the fear of Stephen Miller. He's openly said it. That's the fear of Steve Bannon. They've openly said it. The one book that Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller have promoted repeatedly to the press is Camp of the Saints. For those who don't know, because I've spent a lot of time researching these white extremists and white supremacists, Camp of the Saints is a racist fictional novel written by a French racist that warns, wait for it, that warns of a brown horde overtaking France. That is the book that they recommend. Camp of the Saints and the Turner Diaries. Turner Diaries, if you don't know, is the text that radicalized Timothy McVeigh to commit the crime of blowing up the federal building right in 1995. Turner Diaries and Camp of the Saints are now the two fictional novels that, if you will, are the foundation of white nationalist literature. That is the book that Steve Bannon and Stephen Miller have promoted for years, and not just recent, for the past 10 years. They got power again, right? So what they're doing is they're going after the Constitution, they're going after the Fifth Amendment, and if you think, it'll only apply to the Katies and the Wadges and the undocumented and the pro-Palestinian activists and the Mexicans, I'll be okay. Habeas corpus, folks, is for everybody. So if this administration that has no problem kidnapping literal legal immigrants and sending them to die, that means they can kidnap you. They kidnapped Rumeysa Ozturk, a 30-year-old Turkish
Yes.
graduate, in the middle of the day. Masked ICE agents came and took her. She was detained for 2 months. Thank God, as of this week, she just got out. The crime that Rumeysa Ozturk committed,
She wrote an essay.
she
She
wrote an
wrote an
essay.
essay. That's it. She wrote an essay. I mean, that is the only evidence of her doing anything wrong. And yet she didn't do anything wrong.
And
Waj, what's crazy is that, y- you know, My father came to the United States at the age of 19 from South Korea with a Korean English dictionary, $2.43 in his pocket. Now, dude, this is back in the 40s, right? He had
Wow.
no friends and no family here, and he could barely speak English, but he came here to chase the American dream. So, are you going to tell me then that I'm born in the United States and I have no value? It's the abject racism, which is the point for them,
There you
but it's
go. There
also
you go.
the ability to devalue, right? Because the way that true white supremacy, great replacement theory, et cetera, the way that these things work is they condition people, as we know through Nazi Germany, for example, and the Holocaust. The devaluation of a person makes it easier for you to look at them in a different way and to not be concerned or to give a shit about what happens to them.
That's right.
I think what has been hijacked in terms of the narrative here is the ability for the Republicans to say, but why do you love a terrorist? Why do you want a terrorist to stay in the United States when we talk about the Kilmar Abrego Garcias and others? Here's the thing, no one wants a gang person who commits violence and crimes of terror to be in our neighborhood. Nobody wants somebody like that in our community. But everyone should want the government to have to prove that that's who you are. And in the absence of that evidence, which is our traditional legal and judicial system, the burden of proof is always going to be on the government. In the absence of them carrying their burden, you should not be removed from this country. You should not be kidnapped from US soil, regardless of your citizenship status at this time. It's called due process. And to your point about habeas, if you don't like it, again, go somewhere else. I mean, again, not a radical concept, Waj, but why are you fucking living here with me if you don't want to live with the United States Constitution? Form your own form of government somewhere else, but don't do it in my backyard because I'm raising a 10-year-old to believe that truth is truth and equality means something, and that she goes to a school with kids of all different colors and races and
Yeah.
backgrounds,
Mhm.
and she doesn't see that because we are not having a community of that. And this is even in Florida, which is where I'm raising her. So, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, I am praying that the guardrails hold and
I
that
hope so.
there is enough in our judicial system of people that say, I like my job. I'm a judge. I'm not ceding my power to another branch of government because it's a co equal branch. I'm not going to cede that to somebody else. But then you see stuff like this grand jury returning an indictment against Judge Dugan in
You set me up.
Wisconsin and her arraignments today in federal court. And it's a threadbare, super thin indictment. Grand juries indict ham sandwiches. Defense doesn't get a chance to really present something to the contrary. But she's already moved to dismiss immediately, saying that it's an unconstitutional violation of her rights, right? I mean, this is the regime, the Trump regime tactic of intimidation, which is why the more that we use our collective voices to educate and to speak out, the better we're going to be. I say to people, there's more of us than there are of them. There's strength in numbers. We just have to continue to find the places where we are. And we need to continue to meet the urgency of the moment with the urgency of the message.
And Judge Dugan's in the Wisconsin, folks, and I always told people, if you think you'll be safe, they literally are indicting a white female American citizen judge, Judge Hannah Dugan, right, for simply
Yeah.
doing her job. They lied about her, they arrested her, and now they've indicted her. You are not a judge. I'm not a judge. And if you're watching and you're a person of color, you ain't white judges. So first and foremost, they came after the undocumented, right? Then they go after the trans. Then they go after Muslims, Mexicans, people of color. And we sit there and we say, that doesn't affect us. Maybe they're extremists. We don't want them here, right? As Katie said, it always begins with dehumanization. I was in Auschwitz. I visited Auschwitz, and
Mm,
we were talking during the first Trump administration, right? So it was me and a bunch of Americans. We were talking about at that time when Republicans and Trump were talking about invasion and the dehumanizing language against immigrants. And a tourist guide there would leaned in and said, if you don't mind me asking, I was just listening, and that's how it always begins. And we're like, what?
ugh,
It always begins with language. That's how it always begins. And that tour guide, his grandfather had survived Auschwitz. And so he volunteers on the weekends, right? So he was listening to us talking about the Trump administration's description of immigrants as vermin, as invaders. And he leans in and says, it always begins with language, dehumanizing language. And look at what Stephen Miller said last week. He says that right now, America is, wait for it, being invaded. And because it is being invaded and we're at wartime, according to Stephen Miller, there's no wartime, there's no invasion. He says
None.
we have to use the 1798 Alien Enemies Act and we're at war. And Stephen Miller and white supremacists and white Christian nationalists like him believe that the existence of me and Katie, especially the 1965 Immigration Nationality Act, which allowed my father as a 19-year-old to come to this country, to him, Stephen Miller says that that was the worst thing that ever happened to America because I love this. White supremacists put conditions of the 1965 Immigration Nationality Act, right? Family reunification and giving preference to those immigrants with education. They assumed, Katie, that it would be white people. They wanted, even then in 1965, on the heels of the Civil Rights Act, they thought, aha, if we put these two conditions in the 1965 Immigration Nationality Act, it will ensure a white majority. And folks, guess who took advantage of it? People who look like me and Katie. Oh, I love it so much, right? So this is them. They literally are using the words. They think we are invading them. It's that dehumanizing language. And that dehumanizing language, Katie, let's be honest, and that dehumanizing image and the narratives and stories have often been promoted by corporate media. The lack of representation, right? We saw this even when it came to there was a huge story, folks, a couple years ago, the Syrian refugees. You guys remember
Oh,
internationally, you saw all these white journalists complete. You said the subjectivity. We're human beings at the end of the day. They were looking at the double standard between Ukrainian refugees and Syrian refugees. And you saw so many people, because so many people in media are often white, just like every other industry, right? The people at the top are white. This type of unconscious bias where they were empathizing with the white Ukrainians. He looks like my grandfather. And then with Syrians, it was kind of like, eh. So talk to us, Katie. I'm going to keep you for a couple more minutes. I'm trying to get you out by 11:30, but hopefully you have 2, 3 more minutes.
of
You
course.
had a you had a show at MSNBC. I was so happy that you got a show. Katie, I first met Katie, folks, in the first Trump administration. Katie and I were used as the people of color who did the morning Saturday shows. Katie
That's
used
right.
to come up all the way from Florida.
From
I used to
Miami.
come up all the way from Virginia. We
Oh
used to
my
be there at
God.
6 a.m. Katie and I used to bring our A game. I thought we crushed it. And Katie and I then used to meet in the MSNBC green room where we used to eat donuts. And
Oh
then
my
Katie, thankfully,
gosh.
they finally saw Katie's talent and made her into a host of a show. Now, in the past year, in the second Trump administration, if you have noticed, Katie Fang no longer has a show. If you've noticed, Joy Reid no longer has a show. If you've noticed, my friend Mehdi Hassan no longer has a show. And if you've noticed, the few people of color who have remained, I'm going to say this. I don't want you to get you in trouble, Katie. They're now co-hosting. So three people of color co-host a show, and one white anchor host a show. So I joked with Mehdi and a few others. I'm like, each person of color is like a third of a white person on MSNBC. Uh, I don't want to get you in trouble. This is just me making my observations, but the importance of having a Katie Fang, a daughter of a Korean immigrant, talking about the law and freedoms and Constitution on MSNBC. Why was that so huge to you and your community and should be a big deal?
I didn't expect to get this emotional with what you just said, but I'm actually very emotional. Wow. Um, because you reminded me, Waj, of the sacrifice that you do to be able to get to the point to maybe one day have a seat at the table to have that recognition. My good friend Alex Wagner also lost her show, and
Yep.
she has now become not even a correspondent. Now she's just a political analyst for MSNBC. Um, in the event Alex leaves MSNBC, there will not be a single AANHPI woman left at
Mm,
MSNBC. The only male is Richard Louie, who is spectacular, but is underutilized and also not seen, and he's undervalued. Um, it's an incredibly demoralizing conversation to have about the lack of representation. When I had the show, I had a, I was very nervous because I felt like while I had opened the door for other people, and I would go to events like AAJA, the Asian American Journalists Association, and the just the awe from the, I'll call them kids because I'm turning 50, but the awe from the attendees because they were like struggling to even be in a local market to be an anchor or a reporter or a correspondent. There's very few of us that are there. East Asian, South Asian, there's not a lot of us, right? And I felt so much pressure because I'm like, okay, I opened the door, I got to keep it open.
yeah.
And now that I'm gone, when is it ever going to happen? And then you combine that with the pressure from the Trump administration with the DEI investigations, Brendan Carr at the FCC. I mean, this is the luxury of independent media. You don't have FCC Brendan Carr like breathing down your throat about what are your DEI policies and why do you have this and why do you do this? It's so hard, Wash, because I raised my kid to believe that the sky isn't the limit. There are no limits. So, did you I never told anybody this. I didn't tell my daughter my show got canceled until it slipped out during a
Mm,
conversation with my mom,
mm.
and, I just started speaking about this the last couple days. I still had time on my contract at MSNBC, and I quit. I quit.
Oh, wow. Good for
I
you,
quit.
Katie. I didn't
I
know that.
had m
Good for you.
I had about, I had about 10 months left on my contract at MSNBC, and I quit. I quit. I did not want the I didn't want to miss the opportunity to continue to put my voice out there. This moment is too important. The issues are too critical. And I felt like my experience as a trial lawyer and as a lawyer, as a mom, as a child of immigrants, having been on mainstream media, having felt the support from people like you and those that are tuning in right now, that was way too important for me to just let it be shelved. So I said, no, I'm not doing it. So I left, and I left a good paycheck. I left the security of, being at a place that I'd been at. If you counted the time I was there as a legal contributor, I was there for 9 years.
Mm.
So, um, so that being said, and I apologize for being emotional. This was an
No, why
unexpected
are
thing
you
for me, Wash.
apologizing? This is a
Uh,
safe space for
I
human
know.
emotion. This is for tears of joy and also tears of sadness. Look, a lot of people cried for you when they found out that a lot of people cried tears of happiness when you got well, your show. I messaged you. I was so happy, and a
Yeah.
lot of people cried when they found out that you lost your show. And not just you, but Mehdi and Alex and so many folks. Just a culling of people of color, and that I'm glad you mentioned that burden that we put on ourselves because we
Yeah.
grew up, I'm 44, you're 50. We grew up, Katie. There weren't
I'm
people
not
who looked
50
like this
yet.
on TV.
I'm not 50 yet, August
Oh,
1st.
49. But you know what? Asian don't crack. Asian
Oh,
don't
look,
crack.
I know I'm
Katie
doing
looks
okay. I'm doing okay,
Katie,
all things considered.
but I think it's so important because you and me are around that certain age. We grew up in America. There was no one who looked like us. And I remember when I got
No.
my CNN gig, so many, I called them uncles out of respect, Pakistani uncles.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
many Pakistani uncles and aunties are like, Beta, we saw you on Anderson Cooper. Beta, you held your
Yeah.
own.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Shabash, mashallah, keep going doing. We're doing prayers for you. So I'm sure you saw that. Then you feel that burden of responsibility. Then you meet these young bucks who come and see you. Hey, if Katie and Watch could do it, I'm better than Katie and Watch. Maybe I can be a host.
Yes, younger,
And
hungrier, and I want them to be that. I want them to feel like they can do my job a million times better than me. 100% I agree with that.
and can you tell and also let's be honest, Katie, because this is real talk. You and I, when we first met, we went without pay. We showed up at 6 a.m. on Saturday. We brought our A
Years,
game for free. We did
years,
it for years, right? We brought
years.
our A. People
Yeah.
didn't know that. People thought we were paid. When
Nope.
you're a person of color and you're a woman, especially in this industry, but all across America, all the data shows it. You have to work harder, better, faster, stronger, smarter. If Karen works, and respect to Karens, but if Karen and Chet work Monday through Friday, you and I have to work Monday through Sunday. If they work 9 to 6, we have to work 9 to 8. And then even then, it's still not enough, right? And so that it is a gut punch. Let's be honest, it is a gut punch.
It was, I was completely sandbagged. That's the truth. No warning. And I just think, look, I appreciate the safety of the space to be able to share these things with you because I really haven't talked about it. I think, and I'm a strong person. We have to be if we are, especially we're children of immigrants. We have to be strong people, but I also think Waj, um, I know even I know even with the sacrifice, I've earned a place of privilege to be able to
Absolutely.
do what I am doing and to speak and to have the ability to share who I am. The incredible thing about though that kind of runs counterintuitive to how I mean I was raised in a very traditional Asian household. There was a lot of pressure, tiger mom, that type of stuff. But I will say this, now what's amazing is we can bring our full authentic selves. So as I
Yeah.
sit here and I cry with you guys, um, it's legitimately who I am. It's authentically who I am. And so the vulnerability though makes me stronger because I know that
Absolutely.
there's support out there and I know people that believe in the mission. And I'm not at this alone. It's just it was just such an incredibly devaluing experience to go through after having struggled for 20 something years to open my own law firm, build my own book of business. I mean, I was, you know, as a lawyer, I mean, just to leave that autonomy and to leave that sense of defiantly, I have earned my seat at this table because I knew that I had to break through a male dominated legal field to be able to do my own thing. And I saw that I wasn't going to advance at a law firm. So I left and I opened my own law firm and my clients came with me and I had a book of business. And so I left all of that behind to go do the TV stuff, which is why
Yep.
now I feel like, you know what? It's the perfect marriage of my old job as a lawyer, my most recent old job on TV. Now I'm doing the media independently, but I'm also going to be back in court with Norm Eisen and others, and
Oh,
we're
great.
we're we're jamming. We're in court, so I'm doing that, and that's
But
why I appreciate everybody's support. I really do.
it's okay though to mourn it. It's okay to, I think, have
Yeah.
some catharsis and some release because of the journey and the hard work, and because you feel so devalued, even though we value you. Like I said, I have other friends who've been through this. I don't want to mention their story because they'll mention it when the time is right, but I
Yeah.
appreciate you admitting something which people don't know. Folks, oftentimes when this happens to people who are talent on television, what they do is they take away your show, they have you on contract, and they usually bury you for 6 months to 8 months to 10 months. What does that mean? They're not going to give you another show if you're on contract for 6 months. So what they do is once in a while, maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks, they'll bring you on as a commentator, and specifically they'll pay you so you don't get poached by another network. So what Katie did by literally quitting, leaving a 10-month safe security blanket where honestly she could have like just sat there and ate Ben and Jerry's every day, gained 40 pounds and gotten paid for 10 months. She said, I value my voice and I value my reputation and I value my dignity. I will reject your money and be free. I just want people to know how how rare it is, and I'm giving you your flowers and making you uncomfortable because immigrant children of immigrants are really uncomfortable at accepting compliments. It's just how we are raised.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it's a big deal, folks. It's a big deal. It's integrity. And another person who did it, and they have their own story to tell, is Mehdi. Mehdi got somewhat of
Yes.
the same offer, and he said, "You're telling me to be quiet. You can't pay me enough to stay quiet." So Katie and Mehdi, they jumped. They led with integrity. Other people have as well. I don't know the story, but the reason why you don't find out about this is because they pay you off, right? You keep quiet. I scratch your back, you scratch my back. You stay low, and you'll have an honorable death, right? We'll take
Go
you out
commit
back to the
hardy kari in the
yeah, yeah,
lobby.
yeah,
That's what you do.
quietly. So I just want to say that you sharing this, I think is huge because most people don't know, Katie. Most people don't know. So I appreciate you. I've been your fan for 9 years since we used to eat donuts and meet in the green room.
Those were
Folks, there's a
good donuts. Those were good
there
donuts. They were from the
there
donut
was a
plant in
there's a
Brooklyn or something.
small
They were so
there's a
good.
small green room in MSNBC. What used to
Yeah, those
happen
were
is I
good.
used to finish my 1 hour, and then I used to meet Katie, and then Katie used to go on and do her legal analysis for free. She used to fly all the way from Florida, leave her family. I used to take the Amtrak all the way from Virginia and leave my family. And my wife
Yeah.
said, let's just keep it honest. My wife said, Watch, you are killing yourself, man. Every week you go there. And the reason why you do it, folks, is when you're a person of color, you get told, maybe this time I'll work hard, they'll see you, and you'll get the job and you'll take care of your family, right? And then my wife, it came to the point where my wife said, I can't see you destroy yourself like this. You're so good. You're doing this for free on CNN and MSNBC. Enough. So, Katie, I said to MSNBC and CNN, I said, I can't do this again. And just by luck, 3 weeks later, I did a hit on CNN and it went viral, and that's when CNN came to me. But just so many people like us don't know we work so hard for free. But I want you all to support Katie. Katie has made the leap. She left a lucrative gig. She left her contract. She had 10 months on that contract. You heard it here first, folks. She left it because she would not be silenced. And now she has started her own Substack. Katie, I know this is very difficult. I need you to summon the pride and confidence of a white man and shamelessly promote yourself. Shamelessly promote yourself.
Lord grant me, what is it? Lord grant me the confidence of a mediocre white guy. Isn't that
Yes,
what this
yes, right now.
the phrase
Amen.
is? Now, look, when I write that the support is greatly appreciated, it is truly sincere. I have said time and time again that I know there's a lot of asks that are out there. I've seen them. I'm supporting others as well. So people supporting me would be incredibly special. But I'm also intent upon continuing to provide what I'm doing. Right. There's a great organization of a lot of Women for Harris and other allies called the Persist Network. It's not a TV or media network, it's just a coalition watch. And I went to them and I'm a part of their board. And I said, look, I really thought the 60-second breakdown of the Trump trials that I did last year. They were great. People love them, and a lot. This is an attention economy, and
Mm,
it's really an attention deficit that we're running at. And so, a
absolutely.
60-second kind of breakdown on a daily basis of a major or a few major lies from the Trump administration would be great. Shadow press secretary, here we go. So I launched Wait a Damn Minute yesterday, and every day, and it's free content, Waj. Every day I'll be posting on all the different social media platforms that we have, myself and Persist. You
Oh,
know,
fantastic.
we'll pick something. Yesterday we picked apart one of Trump's stupid, lines about stability, prosperity, and peace. And we pointed out how he doesn't do that. And that's what we're doing because as I end these Wait a Damn Minutes, I say America deserves better than Trump. So I have a mission, I have a goal. So your support, though, is always invaluable. And Watch, thank you for allowing me again the safe space to just open up. I will say this just to make sure everything's very clear. MSNBC wasn't cruel to me. They
No,
didn't
no, no,
threaten me.
no.
They were not, it was my decision to leave. They didn't force me out. And who knows what would have happened over the next 10 months. I just felt like the opportunity to go back to the courtroom to fight for democracy, literally fight for democracy in court. And I thought the opportunity to do the work in independent media was just the timing was just too critical. I could not imagine sitting on the sidelines for 10 months waiting to see if I was going to have the ability or the platform to have a voice. So I chose me. I picked me. What is that watch? That Grey's Anatomy thing, that funny thing that Meredith
My
Grey was like,
wife has seen every
pick
single episode of
me.
Grey's Anatomy.
Ask her, pick me, choose me. So I picked me. I
You
picked
know
me.
what? You and me are children of immigrants, but we're also fools. I'm sure our parents would have been like, just take the money. But I'm like you. I can't stay quiet. I never have been able to.
Can't
Like
sit
you,
still.
yeah, Kansas, like you, CNN was also good to me. New York Times was also good to me. But it's a situation where you realize there's a ceiling for people like us. And I don't want anyone to tell me my limits and what I can or can't do. I want to try my best. And so here we are,
That's what my 10-year-old does. My 10-year-old loves to tell me all my limits. So yeah.
all the
I
limits.
already have one
Uh,
of those.
but folks, look, Katie Fang is on Instagram at Katie Fang. She's on X at Katie Fang. She's on Blue Sky and she has a
Cesspool. I mean,
Substack.
I'm still there, but I really don't post on
Yeah,
X. What a
and
cesspool.
Blue Sky, she's
Blue sky.
www.katiefang.substack.com. Please support her. And folks, this is the Left Hook Substack. I know how privileged I am. I know how lucky I am compared to most people. I am a fool. I have kept everything without paywall. Because I believe that democracy dies in, wait for it, darkness. So you pay what you can. I've kept it super cheap. Please like this video if you're watching on YouTube. Please subscribe to Katie Substack. Please be a paid subscriber to Katie Substack. Please be subscribe to Left Hook if you can pay. Fantastic. And folks, please, 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 as always, be kind, be empathetic, be decent. We're dealing with a white supremacist regime that is coming after all of us. Today, it's transgender folks, undocumented folks, immigrants, but tomorrow it'll be you. Fascists eat their own. So please, oh, please be kind. Do whatever you can. Everyone has a superpower. Lean in, be informed, help each other out. It's okay to be vulnerable. There's strength and vulnerability. Lean in and create community, find community. And hopefully, this could be a safe space for anyone who, isn't a racist, isn't a bigot. And like me and Katie, have kids whom we're trying our best to educate and raised to be decent, kind, empathetic people, right? Last thing I'll say is, my kids born and raised in America, their next door neighbors are Ethiopian Christians, their other friends are
Mm,
white Christians, their other friends are Afghans, their other friends are immigrants from El Salvador. These kids, they get it. They get along. They're sweet. They help each other, right? So these are the type of people that we want to raise in a multiracial democracy, whether Stephen Miller likes it or not, that is the United States of America. Katie, I kept you 15 minutes longer, but I hope
it's
it gets you
fine.
subscribers and paid subscribers. Thank you for sharing. Everyone else, until next time, don't be a fascist. Katie, I'll see you soon. Take
Love you
care.
guys. Bye.